Welcome back, everybody, to the Tentacles of Cuyahoga County. I am your host, the infamous ex-chief, and this is the week of July 22nd. A lot of things happened last week. Ex-president was shot. This channel became an official partner of YouTube, which I'll share some analytics with you because I've been sharing it as the channel has grown. We are getting back to the second interview, and I apologize, but I have really bad allergies. And got some frogs in my throat. We're going to finish our interview with Doug Miller. And as you know, from time to time, I have some social faux pas here on this show. Mainly because I'm still learning. So that Doug's interview was actually the first in-person interview that I had ever done. And so I had set it up using this platform, Riverside, which I use most of my channel recording for. And I set Doug up on a second video. I was using an iPhone, actually, for a second camera. That's what I was looking for. And for some reason, at some point, I believe we had actually taken a break, and we came back online to continue recording. And I lost the feed, apparently. And unfortunately, I have been in contact with Riverside, trying to figure out if it was somewhere in the cloud that I was not aware of. And apparently it is not. Apparently it is gone. Apparently, just so if anybody else is using Riverside, just let it be warned to you. Apparently when you're using a camera or if you're using a second external camera feed, it will give you like the audio levels of whatever device you're using, but it doesn't actually give you a preview window, so you have no idea if you were recording or not. And I don't know if you saw during the recording, I kept shifting my eye set basically to the iPhone, trying to figure out if it was still in frame and so on and so forth, but it doesn't actually appear on my screen. So I had no idea that it was not recording, so I apologize. So we're going to take that lovely still photo of him once the video drops off. I'm going to take that lovely still photo of him and implant it. But I did want to take the second here and show the analytics for the channel here. And as you can see, lifetime, we have 64. Well, down here it says 64.9, but it's 64,864 views so far, with that being 3.5 thousand watch hours with 1,489 subscribers. Now, the cool thing about the watch hours, if everybody is not aware, the watch hours, after you, YouTube has somewhat lowered their initial tiers. There's two tiers, from what I understand, of becoming a YouTube partner, and I've obtained the first tier, which is 3,000 watch hours. The second tier is 4,000 watch hours, and again, that has to be within a calendar year. And I'm already halfway. I've obtained the first tier, 3,000, and already on the more than halfway to the full tier of 4,000 watch hours. And if you notice, my highest watched video is still, wrong monitor, I'm trying to scroll up on here. The highest watched video is still one of the videos on the Dawn series, which is What Do We Know About Dawn's Death? And that's actually where I broke everything down as far as all of the public records requests that I had completed. And we sort of went old school and did a deep dive analysis on it. And that is still my highest watched video for the channel, which is not surprising because her case is definitely out there. So we're going to get back into the second interview with Doug. I know that we had received a lot of comments actually on his first segment. So we're going to get down into his second segment here. And if time permits, I'll have a wrap-up, follow-up segment here to guide our interview out. But let's get into Doug. Even by
we started this earlier, by the way. We started this 2 hours ago.
I had actually interviewed an old friend of mine who actually retired from. Oh, I'm way off camera. I had a friend of mine who retired from Las Vegas Metro Police on there, and that was somewhat of a loose podcast, but this is definitely ranking higher than that. So
I'm glad.
So again, just giving more examples. So let's just throw another hypothetical into the situation. You're at Walmart. Guy comes in. I'm not leaving. Whatever. And let's say he punches you in the face, or tries, because I know that your ninja techniques would not allow him to punch you in the face. Right. But he tries to punch you in the face. How would force escalate at that point?
Okay, so this is going to be active resistance, right? So when active resistance is in front of you, you follow your use of force continuum, right? So we now have taken it all the way to officer options, right? So he tries to punch me in the face. Maybe he's 6'4", 280. Maybe he has cauliflower ears. So am I going to go hands-on with this guy? Probably not, right? So now we're in a situation where we have to decide, can I control this with my hands? Do I have other officers with me? Am I by myself? We have decisions to make, right? Am I going to take a step back and use my taser? Am I going to try use my ASP and hit major muscle groups? Am I going to use pepper spray? We're going to decide at this point what we're going to use, and the situation is going to dictate it. People surrounding us, are they for this guy? Am I by myself? Should I retreat? Should I back up? Is this guy identified already? Do I know who he is? All these things are going to feed into my decision making on scene, and this is why you hire officers that have high acuity and that can make decisions and they can rationalize what's right and what's wrong. It's part of the hiring process. So he's trying to punch me in the face.
Let me give you more scenario. So I wanted you to explain before I interrupt, because all of those are completely valid points of how you would respond. I'm going to give you a little more information now. All right. The guy is 6'8". He weighs 250 pounds. He has kung fu, karate things on his shirt. And you work for, and I'm assuming they're still the same. I used to work for West Salem. Let's say that you work for West Salem PD. You say, hey, I need code 10, which means assistance. And you know that Wayne County is your nearest backup and they're 20 minutes away.
20 minutes away. So we're going to start with the use of force. It's going to be practical for that situation, right? People, and this, you told me, you said, Doug, this is for civilians. I want to explain use of force for civilians. So if cops are listening, I hope you agree with me. If you don't, you don't. But the use of force continuum is a guideline, right? I said earlier, you can't policy everything that you're going to come in contact with. And policy is to protect the agency, not to protect the officer. Let's not get it confused. Policy is to protect the agency from liability and being sued. So 6'8", 250, cauliflower ears, he's ready to fight. What kind of felony is this trespass? What am I dealing with here? Do I need to, by myself, do all of this? What we forgot to teach officers is that Retreating is a possibility. Retreating is okay in our business. The bravado, the I'm the police, I have the badge, my authority, doesn't always trump the smart thing to do, right? So maybe in this situation, I retreat. He's going to stand his ground. Maybe I wait for another officer to show up on scene. So I don't know. You're giving me a hypothetical. Potentially, I go forward. Potentially, I retreat.
And that's actually an excellent point that he's making here. And this, I actually prided myself, and I used to have a couple of videos. Maybe I don't know if I can still find them or not, because they were actually on my East Cleveland server. That I would actually have roll call training with some of my officers, and there was actually a couple of excellent videos that showed that where a retreat was perfectly fine when the officer, for whatever reason, like you said, maybe the bravado, they didn't retreat where they could have retreated.
I'm 53, Scott. I got about 62 seconds of fight in me, right?
Right. But so those are excellent points. Let's say that you are able to somewhat retreat. Let's say that he's not necessarily actively doing anything, but he's obviously still not leaving. And let's say your Wayne County deputy shows up for backup. So what do you do at this point? You come back in. He's still saying, "Hey, I respect that you get a job to do, but fuck you. I ain't moving."
You continue on. We've already passed a few levels of fixing this compliance, right? Our ultimate goal in policing is compliance. If you get caught up in the whose appendage is bigger and arguing with somebody, if two people are arguing, nobody really knows who the real asshole is, right? If you're somebody watching, at this point we've already passed everything. I got another guy on scene. I'm going to tell him, hey, we have to take this guy in. And then we're going to go in and take this guy in.
And so I'm going to actually, and you're going to hate me for this, all right? I'm going to keep stopping you, okay? Because it just something else came up in my head, which actually has happened to me. So now, just so we set the stage, we have a West Salem police officer who has his policy and procedures, and then we have a Wayne County deputy who has their policy and procedures. And so, how about if that deputy were to say to you, "Well, wait a minute, we gotta do something else now because my policy says that we can't go here." And I'm going to bring up we're going to slide into another example, and this is actually a real life situation. I'm working in East Cleveland, and as many of you know, East Cleveland didn't have very many food destinations for officers, so often we would end up
steak, baby.
We would often end up on Coventry Road.
Sure.
And
Cleveland Heights.
Which is Cleveland Heights. So I remember a situation where technically I'm actually outside of jurisdiction, but I'm not doing anything violation. I've called out, hey, I'm going to take my lunch on Coventry, which is, again, perfectly okay to do. But while I'm there, I see a male in a fist fight with a Cleveland Heights officer. So I come up to assist, and I pepper spray the male. And again, in my policy in East Cleveland, that's an accepted use of force. Officers are already engaged physically with this male. To me, it's better than going hands-on. I'm going to pepper spray him.
Administratively.
But after it happened, Cleveland Heights apparently did not have pepper spray, which caused all sorts of issues.
Sure.
Because they had no pepper spray. They didn't have it in their policy. Sure. So I don't know. Can you elaborate a little bit about?
Yeah, man. Give me that write-up, and I'll put it right above my fireplace, and I'll have a fucking story to talk about the rest of my career, right? Because I'm gonna default to the officer. I'll take that write-up, right? It's not in the policy. You know what? I'd rather be on the ground fighting with an officer and take my write-up than, I'm sorry, officer, I can't help you because in my policy states this, right? So I guess that there's write-ups in this business. And I'm talking to the cops now that are listening to your podcast. We all know there's write-ups in this business that are worth it. And that would be a write-up that's worth it. Somebody's fist fighting a police officer, fuck that guy. We're going in. And then whatever happens afterwards, we have to go with information known at the time. If we always worry about policy, we're paralyzed by policy, we'll be afraid to act, and take care of ourselves and other officers. So I'll take that right up every day of the week.
I guess I just wanted to throw it in to show the audience that use of force policies in general are very complex, and not even one of two agencies may not even have the same policy. And so a lot of times people will ask questions, well, why did your officer do this? Why did your officer do that? Why didn't your officer do this? Why didn't your officer do that? And that's because policies vary through agency, which I honestly feel is part of a problem. I actually, when I was in East Cleveland, I was trying to advocate. We had all sorts of issues with our pursuits.
Yes.
And I was attempting to get a county-wide policy that all chiefs of police in Cuyahoga County could agree on for pursuits, because, again, you have people that know that, and I don't know, I honestly haven't kept up with it. When I was chief of East Cleveland, wasn't that long ago. I'm assuming it's the same. Cleveland was generally not allowed to pursue. So you had a lot of people that would run from Cleveland that would then come into East Cleveland thinking, well, hey, the police aren't allowed to pursue, so I'm not going to stop for them. And they would get in a pursuit with East Cleveland, and it was just causing all sorts of issues. And so I was actually attempting to advocate. There was actually an organization, the Cuyahoga County Chiefs Police, very much like IACP, just on a very lower level of Cuyahoga County. And I was trying to advocate, hey, can we all just agree on whatever it is, whatever the policy is, who cares what it is, can we all just agree? Okay, hey, this is the policy we're going to go for, and this is the policy we're going to institute. And I know we've gone way off in the left field, but we're doing Joe Rogan style. What's your impression on that? I mean, do you feel that maybe policies should be unified from department to department?
Yeah, I think when you have a mutual aid agreement with other agencies, which we do, is we should follow each other's, we should have a policy that's commensurate with what we're dealing with. So you go to Mayberry, you're not going to deal with 256 vehicle pursuits in a year. And if you go to East Cleveland, you're going to deal with that. So I like to say this, especially on camera. I think the use of force continuum is great in theory. But I've worked East Cleveland where the use of force policy states this, and they're showing me their hands, yet they still have a gun in their waistband, right? So I'm not exactly sure that the use of force continuum works everywhere. And to your point, to your question, working together, absolutely. Why can't Cleveland Heights, what is your policy? What is your policy? Us work together with East Cleveland, the sheriff's office, state patrol. All these entities end up together, and I agree. I think there should be some type of unified policy. If you have a mutual aid agreement with this agency, we should be on the same page.
And I agree, it can't be used for everything. Just like you said, use of force is going to be very much dependent on where you are. East Cleveland is not going to ever be able to have the same use of force policy as Bentleyville.
Right.
Where's Beechwood. All right?
Right.
But things like pursuits, I think those are things that we can probably unify.
Okay, look, a trespassing is not going to involve Cleveland Heights, Cleveland, right? A trespassing, it's going to involve East Cleveland. Anything that's going to involve other agencies, pursuits, right? Homicide suspects, warrants, all these things we should be able to commiserate on and be able to say, hey, this is how we handle it as a community. Like Cleveland Heights is our community, right? Cleveland is right next door. This is how we're going to handle it. So at least your officers from Cleveland Heights understand how East Cleveland or the other agency is going to handle it.
We have, I don't know, maybe, yeah.
An airstrike.
Might be Channel 19 helicopter, I don't know. But
Fox 8 hates police. Fox 8 hates police.
Channel 19's up there too. I'm always talking about on my show.
I hope Peggy and what's-his-face Gallup see this. Ed Gallup. They are absolutely anti-police. Jake, my man, Jameson, Ritter, they're complicit, and this is how I feel, in what happened to these officers, right? You cannot always vilify the police and expect the citizens who watch these news entities to cooperate with your police agency, right? So I believe that media is definitely part of the problem.
And this is what I talked about in my last episode. And again, folks, I apologize. We're way off in the weeds. Hopefully, you appreciate this. You have the media now. Officer Ritter gets murdered. So then all of a sudden, the police are the best thing since sliced bread. But then tomorrow, how we arrested the murderer of Officer Ritter. That was not acceptable.
Listen, man, how dare you? How dare you?
So, I mean, I don't understand, and I've talked about this in my show. Northeast Ohio seems to be the only, like, you go watch Columbus, you go to Warren, and they have different media outlets, and the way that they portray the police are completely different. They're actually pretty pro-police, and folks, I'm not saying every police officer is right, but when you have news media who vilifies every officer that's just out there doing their job, it's a problem.
Listen, man, Scott, so you want to defund the police is a big movement lately, right? But these same people that want to defund the police are afraid to tell their own neighbor to turn the music down, and they use us to fucking do it. It's annoying, right? The problem with people who are making these policies, they're never victim of their own ideologies, right? So they make all these rules and how things are supposed to be done, but they live in a ivory tower.
One Bratnall place.
That's right. They live in an ivory tower. I'm on scene. The officers I've trained and the people I've worked with, and I love cops. I love cops, man. We're not perfect. I love cops, but we are put into situations where you would not want yourself to be in, and yet you're making policy and predictions. And now with social media, you've got a voice. No offense, I don't know anything about nuclear physics, so I don't ring in on nuclear physics. But people seem to think that they can ring in on police action and police policy, and just because they're looking at it through a lens of emotion. When I'm looking at it as I've got this person right in front of me. Now, a person watching this Walmart scene would be like, well, okay, why would you hurt that guy? He's very upset. Whereas we have a mission to accomplish, we have a person to be trespassed, so we look at it in two different lenses, and the problem is the people that are judging us have no training, no understanding of exactly what we do. They haven't walked in the shoes of a beat police officer. Walk in the shoes of a beat police officer, and your eyes would be open.
And I don't want to keep going on. Wow.
Let's keep going, dude. I want this to be a 3-hour drunken. What's it called? Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's podcast.
Let's do a different example, and I'm trying to, in my current state, think of different examples. But let's go to a different example. We'll say I don't know. Dispatch to Officer Dougie Miller here. We have a call of a male with a knife, and he's threatening his wife. So, what are your thoughts when you're initially?
Oh, on my way, I want more information. So, dispatches can be great, but if you look at Tamir Rice, dispatch is critical in what we do. So, Tamir Rice, if you remember, he was 15 or whatever he was. The call came into dispatch that said, "Hey, I think there's a kid here with a gun. I don't know if it's a real gun or not." Is what the call came into dispatch. The dispatch to the Cleveland officers was male with a gun at the park, West Park, wherever that was. Right. I have a different mindset, right? Being a police officer for many years, I realized you take everything that dispatch sends you with a grain of salt because, first of all, it's fluid. We don't know. It's changing as we're going. We have a verbal domestic that turns into a physical on our way. So who knows what exactly you're going into? And that's what you have to realize. And the public doesn't understand, right? They see the after effects. They have the whole clues, all the facts. where I didn't have when I was making my decisions on scene. And that's the issue.
And there's actually Supreme Court decisions that talk about this, that whenever you look at some sort of use of force relative to an officer, that it's supposed to be through information known, correct. Can't be hindsight, can't be, well, he learned this later. It's about what the officer knows at that exact time. So you arrive on scene, and male does have a knife, and he's threatening his wife. He's like, I'm going to cut this fine young lady up.
We got distance, right? So we have so many things, right? What is the distance? How close is he to his wife? I mean, what kind of knife is it? There's so many things that you have to realize when you get there. There's just so many different facts that you have to know. And I won't know it till I get on scene. And I get on scene, and the knife is on the table, and he hasn't really used it. He's just threatened to use it. I don't know what the call is. So if somebody says they're going to threaten their wife, they're going to stab them, I'm coming in, and I'm ready to go. I know this could be a lethal force situation, but yet I've got to be able to tone that down depending on what I'm walking into.
So let's say that you walk in, he's maybe 10 or 15 feet away from his wife, but he's got the knife, and he's telling you as you're walking in, I'm going to cut this bee. She won't turn the channel on the TV.
Sure. You're going to have to make an immediate decision. Obviously, your gun should be drawn, and we're going to talk about this later, this use of force by pointing your weapon at somebody. And your weapon should be drawn. Cover should be taken. Distance. We used to be taught the 12 or 16 foot. What was that?
21 foot.
21 foot, right? So we used to be all taught the 21 foot distance. If you break that.
And we're talking, folks, when we're talking about, we used to be trained anything with a person with a knife within 21 feet of you or another person, they could cause deadly force.
Deadly force, right. We would be justified after it all went out 6 months later that, hey, it was justified. So distance, actual threats, actual weapon in his hand, all these things come into play. And this is what the public doesn't understand, is that we're making split-second decisions that you'll be able to look at from body cam and from witness statements for months and months and months to come. And I'm making a decision on scene of what I exactly feel.
So, perfect question that everybody always asks.
Yeah.
Officer Dougie, why are you coming in with your gun drawn? Why don't you use a taser? Why don't you have your pepper spray ready?
All right, so taser works probably 60% out of the time, right? Taser in winter. Anybody who's been a cop who's tried to use a taser in the winter, puffy jackets, thick clothing, this shit doesn't work, man. The taser is an option, not the end all of it.
And just so, tasers, the prongs, they're like almost like fishing hooks.
2 prongs.
And they actually both have to embed in some sort of skin or close proximity to that skin. So what he's talking about with the puffy coats, me in East Cleveland, my experience in East Cleveland, somebody would have a puffy coat, you'd hit them with the taser, and it's not making any contact. Yes. So I'm sorry.
The goal is compliance, right? So civilians, I love you civilians. I hope you're watching my friend's podcast. You have what is called a CSI effect. You watch a lot of CSI shows where DNA comes back in 30 minutes, and all these things happen in an hour show that you watch. The reality is it takes a lot of time to have all these facts to come out in the case. So the CSI effect is a real thing. A lot of civilians don't understand how we operate, what we do. You asked, why are you showing up with your gun out? Well, there's a knife. That's a deadly instrument. We don't meet with a taser or OC with a deadly instrument.
And of course, if you were to have to use deadly force, you would of course shoot him in his hand, right?
That's another favorite part of mine. Shoot him in the leg, shoot him in the arm. CSI will show you that they shoot guns out of people's hands and things like that. Police are taught, and this is what you want your police to be taught, whether you are on the left or the right, you want your police to be taught to stop the threat. That's what we're taught. We're not taught to shoot in the leg. We're not taught to shoot to wound. We're taught to shoot to stop the threat. If there's a threat of lethality, of death of another person or yourself, we are authorized to use deadly force. And we're taught to shoot center mass and take the threat out.
So why center mass? That's another question everybody asks.
You can't hit a moving arm. You can't hit a moving leg. We can't wound people. We don't shoot to wound. We don't shoot to kill. We shoot to stop the threat. And the best way to stop the threat is center mass.
Center mass, folks, is the biggest target. I mean, if you look at your body, center mass is the biggest target. This is a very thin target. My hand,
you're gonna miss.
Arms, whatever, legs, those are very thin targets. Less probability of an officer actually making a successful shot off those. And an unsuccessful shot could be devastating for multiple reasons because it might hit somebody else. So center mass is what he's talking about. The reason we are trained for center mass, the biggest mass.
That's it. Warning shots. A lot of civilians. So I taught online for several years, right? With my master's degree, I'm able to teach lots of bachelor and associate programs in criminal justice. And from my experience, a lot of my students were like, they'd always come back with, because I would pose questions like, what would you do? And a lot of people would come back with less than lethal options with a lethal situation. And to teach the new young people coming into the police world or to the criminal justice world, instead of pointing out how wrong they are, I would rearrange the question to show why they would find out themselves that the taser doesn't work 60% of the time. Pepper spray affects everybody, not just the person you're squirting. So I would always teach that, understanding that if you look at the Columbus shooting 2 years ago, the female who was 16 years old, who had a knife, the officer who showed up on scene had about 8 seconds of de-escalation. Put the knife down, put the knife down. And then he shot the 15-year-old 2 times, I believe. It was like 4 shots fired. There was a lot of uproar about that. He took a life, he did. But unfortunately, he saved the life of the girl that was about to be stabbed. Information known at the time. That officer showed up, and that's what he was presented with. And the problem with the civilians is they seem to think that these less lethal options are the option you should use during a lethal encounter. And it's just not feasible.
So you brought up de-escalation. So we'll move into the question I had relative to de-escalation, and that was, how has de-escalation training impacted use of force in Ohio? And I say Ohio, I understand you're talking more broad.
Sure.
But I mean, just in general in Ohio, if this is where we are.
Yeah.
So in Ohio, how do you feel de-escalation training has?
It's absolutely needed. It's absolutely needed. We talked earlier about how we were brought up in the police world, right? We were brought up. I'm gonna ask you. I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to beat you into compliance, right? That's how policing did it for many years. The Rodney Kings and the George Floyd and the Browns, all of these incidents have helped us become better police officers in knowing what we're dealing with, right? When you hire a police officer, you need good mental acuity, good decision making. It's unfortunate. It's hard to judge who you're going to hire. You put them through so many different background tests, but really, can you test somebody when somebody's standing there with a gun pointing at you, what you're going to react? And you really can't, right? We'll spend $10,000 on interviewing this candidate to be a police officer, but you really aren't going to know what this guy's going to do when the shit hits the fan. So we used to teach that way. We used to teach, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to make you. So within 30 seconds, we're beating somebody out of their car. We're hands-on, right? I agree that we've had to evolve. Policing has evolved, obviously, from many years, but I've agreed we have to evolve into explanations. When time allows, let's talk. Let's verbal judo, man to man, man to woman, whatever it may be, and let's find a reasonable situation or answer that we can both deal with prior to hands-on use of force, right? That is the whole goal of compliance. The whole goal of compliance or use of force is compliance. And if you can talk your way into compliance, God bless you. I'm going to tell you a story. East Cleveland Middle School, Chambers Middle School. We cornered somebody who was hiding behind a air conditioner on the side of the school. He had nowhere to go. It was all brick. I had him at gunpoint. He followed my commands. Stand up. Go against the wall. He followed all my commands. And I said, get down on your knees. He told me, like this. He said, I'm not getting on my knees. I had compliance for several options. I could have done what most cops do. I said, get on your knees. Get on your knees. I found an option. All right, put your hands on the wall. This is a true story that made me understand use of force and compliance, right? If I get stuck in one thing, get on your knees, and he says no, now I've created a compliance issue. What is an option? This is what officers need to realize. What is another option that I can deal with safely to effect this arrest? And he said he wasn't going to get on his knees. And I was able to say, all right, then at least put your hands on the wall.
Because you have to be thinking to yourself at this point, hey, he's complied with me up to this point.
Exactly.
There must be a reason he doesn't want to get, and it could be a totally selfish reason,
but
he's compliant up to this point.
My jeans are from fucking Jay Sean or whatever it is.
Right.
It could be anything.
Yes.
And officers have to find that middle ground where, you know what, I'm comfortable with that. So really, to break it all down, finding compromise when dealing with suspects, citizens, or whatever it is, when you find the compromise, things end up better. As a chief, you want me to have that compromise, because if not, I'm going hands-on. Now I got to use the force that I got to deal with. Me maybe getting hurt, being off the road for 3 months, putting more pressure on other officers, having a civil lawsuit with this guy. Yet, if you can put your hands against that wall and I can come affect this arrest, we're all better for it at the end of the day.
Because and folks, just I've talked about it in previous shows, previous episodes, but I just want to make certain everybody understands. Police officer's job, their entire job, is to enforce the law. So sometimes, again, he opened up. Police sometimes tell you and require you to do things that you don't want to do. Nobody wants to do. I don't want to be told what to do. All right, I'm almost 50 years old. I don't want some guy telling me what to do. All right,
I'm 53. I thought you were 50.
I'm 50 in this September. This September, I'm 50. So,
Christ, I'm older than you.
Yeah. So, I don't want to do what you are telling me to do. So people have to place themselves in that role, that police have to get compliance off of people that don't want to do what you're telling them to do.
Yeah.
So it's almost a negotiation.
It is, brother. It is compliance. If you just think, as a police officer, I teach a lot of these young officers. Compliance is your ultimate goal, right? The problem is when they leave the academy. To my civilians who are watching this, when officers leave the academy, at least the academies that I work for, they leave with a sense of duty to their community and making their community a better place. The culture of an agency is what corrupts officers, and that's a true story. They leave out of the academy and then they go to the Lindales. Sorry, Lindale, you get too many tickets. They go to the Lindales, and the whole essence of policing is tickets on the fucking freeway, right? So these officers leave with a great basic start of policing. And they get all this information from guys like me and great police officers, and then they leave with a certain set of values and constructs, and then they go to the Lindales and the places that are heavy focused on making money for a mayor's court or whatever it may be, and they assimilate to these cultures. And I tell them, you're going to go to a place that you're going to assimilate to the culture. After you're off probation, be the police officer you said you wanted to be at the beginning. Every officer I ask at the beginning of every academy says, I want to make a difference. I want to help people. Revert back to that after you get through your probation or whatever it may be. Not every agency is right for who you are. And I teach this to every single, not all money is good money. Beechwood makes like $60 an hour on accident. Doesn't mean you fit in there with your who you are and sleep good at night and whatever it may be. So, yeah, compliance is the ultimate goal. And that is our whole job. You put all this training and all this 800 hours around it. The ultimate goal is compliance. And if you can get there quicker, you're a better officer for it. If you can get to compliance quicker. How do you do that?
So he brought up de-escalation, and I mean we're staying on de-escalation here for a second. So just so everybody understands, and I think he made a hugely valid point. When time allows, right? So everybody understands when you show up on a scene and guy's got a gun to somebody's head, and you don't have the time possibly for the de-escalation that you want in that situation, but probably 90, well, I don't want to throw out huge stats. I don't know.
A high percentage.
A high percentage, you do have an opportunity to talk to somebody, and that's, I'm working with personal experience, even working in East Cleveland, one of the most violent cities in the United States, all right? Even there was a high probability, and you still, in East Cleveland, you still have to go hands-on. I'm not taking away from anything that goes on in East Cleveland. It's a hugely violent city. A lot of times you are that 1 out of 10 off for people that we keep talking about for whatever reason. That one seems to make it in East Cleveland almost every time. But there are times where you have the opportunity to de-escalate. And I think part of the de-escalation is what you're talking about, the bravado of officers, where if I understand, hey, I'm a man. The guy I'm talking to is a man. He may be the largest piece of shit in the world, okay? But he's still a man, still a woman. Whatever, all right? That person still is owed respect. And if you as the police officer have that mindset, this is my opinion. I don't know if that's going to back me up on this or not. Totally all right, agree. It's my opinion. If you go in with that mindset, I am a public servant. I'm here to service the public. I'm a man. They're a man. They're a female. All right? And you have that mindset in your head. I think it backs the officers down a little bit, because a lot of the officers, again, are still, hey, I'm the police. You're going to listen to what I say. You're going to do what I say. You're not going to do it. Well, I'm going to show you. And that's where the problems lead in.
So I learned this in East Cleveland in 2012. My career in East Cleveland is very storied. It's auxiliary, part-time, laid off-ish. Part-time, full-time. I have a long, I don't want to sound like I was a career East Cleveland guy. I have a very different approach. But in 2012, I learned that the people we deal with, our clientele, our demographic in East Cleveland, if they have felonies, most of the people you have felonies already. They don't care about your shiny little badge. Okay? They've already got several felonies, right? If respect gets respect, this is something I said to many, many people working in East Cleveland. They don't care about your little badge. They'll go to jail over it. So you had to learn, and were forced to learn in the inner city areas compared to suburbs. No offense to the suburb guys, it's all filtered everywhere now. But in the inner city, if you wanted to battle every night, you could have that battle. If you wanted to get compliance, you could work at that angle, right? So I teach everybody that you're going to see these people again. Respect is very important. I tell people to teach or to treat people like, who do you love the most or respect the most in your life? Treat people like you would want that person treated, and you're going to do well in this career. I've seen people at Giant Eagle I see him at the end of the hall or the end of the aisle, And I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, fuck, I remember this guy. So I'm grabbing a can of green beans, like I'm going to smash this guy in the head with my green beans. But in general, this guy was especially was like, yo, man, you treated me fair. I appreciated you, whatever. I got an East Cleveland story that was amazing. What was the veterinarian place in East Cleveland that the guy got paid in like, you could pay him in like food or whatever. But there was a veterinarian place. And I saw people that I had arrested before there. My sister had some kittens that she found that were dying. Anyways, the whole thing is you have to treat people. You're going to see them again, so treat them with respect at the time, so they'll never have to worry about it. I'd put people in the back of the car. I would open my slider, and I'd say, hey, how did we get in this position? If they would take accountability, I would talk to them. Like, hey, man, I get it, brother. People make mistakes. Nobody is the sum of one decision in their life, right? Or 1 year or one bad decision, one bad decade, right? We can all get better. But a lot of times I would talk to people in the back of the cruiser, and they'd be like, man, fuck you, fuck the system, everybody's against me. Just shut the fucking slider. I got nothing to talk to you about. So I guess back to your initial question was, compliance is, if you can get to compliance, that's the best way to handle every situation in policing.
And I don't know how many times, and honestly, I don't know if it's the way I should have felt, but I don't know how many times we would get back on an arrest, and I would have a guy in that booking area, and the biggest compliment to me would be like, hey, man, I appreciate you because you showed me respect. And they would say that, and I would be like, dude, that's fucking awesome, okay?
Yeah.
Because this guy, here he is, he's in jail, and he's thanking me for respecting him, and I just it touches me honestly, because I was like, hey, I did something right here, because
absolutely
this guy, he may have been the biggest fucking shitbird of all, but I respected him.
But today, let's talk about today, right? And that's an important thing, and I appreciated that. And if you get into this job for the right reasons, those are the things that you appreciate at the end of the day, because there's not a lot of write-ups and not a lot of bravado, or not a lot of accolades to police officers, right? So I thoroughly enjoyed and the learning process. I was a guy who made a lot of mistakes too, just like every brand new officer makes mistakes, right? You just don't know what you don't know. Training. Let's talk about training. I know this is coming up. The training for police officers is, since we're so short, we have curtailed training for our police officers. Now we're sending police officers out here to make decisions, good decisions, on behalf of the public they serve. That is our job, to make good decisions on behalf of the public you serve. I've stopped OVIs that were 5 miles from their home, but they had said, I just got back from Afghanistan. I'm sorry, brother, I'm all fucked up. And I got them a ride home and didn't use the letter of the law to jam them, Discretion is a big thing. We haven't talked about it yet, and discretion is important. I want the public that's seeing this to know that your officers in your city should make good decisions on your behalf. What decision would you make for an Afghanistan veteran who just got back and, got a Purple Heart, he's drinking a bottle of whiskey, he fucking put his truck into a ditch, which happened, and I helped him get out of the ditch, helped him get home, and didn't charge him with the letter of the law. Am I terrible? Or did I make the right decision on behalf of the public I serve, right?
And a lot of it has been taken out of our hands. And I'm not disparaging, certain organizations that are out there. But, a lot of the things, you bring up, like DUI driving, and a lot of it has been taken out of our hands. And any opportunity, again, the discretion is up to the officer, just like you said. You got a guy that's serving our country, right? He's obviously probably suffering with some major PTSD issues, and are we going to be able to fix that in 5 minutes? We're not going to be able to fix that in 5 minutes.
Did I serve you well by jamming this guy up, right? And I think discretion is a huge thing. There's a bunch of write-ups, and I want all the cops and the civilians to see this. There's write-ups that you can accept in this business, man, and I'll take them, right? If I get that Afghanistan guy a ride home, The truth is, he had his bottle of liquor next to him. He didn't crash into anything. He crashed into a ditch, and I helped him get through all that. Do I feel good about that? I really feel good about that. Did I violate policy? I probably did. Did I violate what you would expect of me? There's certain people who are out there like, he was drunk, he was driving, fuck him. But that is just not how this business works, man. And compliance, back to compliance. We have to balance our emotion and what's right and wrong. Certain people deserve the full letter of the law. Certain people deserve a break today. Like, my husband died last week. I'm sorry. I got a back seat full of flowers. I'm on my way to the fucking funeral. Yeah, I've had 2 glasses of wine, whatever it may be. Listen, man, we have to make decisions on behalf of the public, and I feel like I've always done that. I want other officers to always... We're only focused on policy now. We're only focused on policy. We've lost the human element of why we got in this fucking business, right? I became a cop because I was a medic in the Army, okay? I loved helping people. I loved being a medic, right? I became a police officer because I missed that unity of the military, the Army, but I also I loved making a difference, you know? And this is what I try to relay, and I teach a lot of your police officers, wherever you live at. I teach at 6 academies, so I teach a lot of your police officers. And this is the imprint I want to leave on them, because I know what they're about to do. They're about to go, thank you for the job. What do you want me to do, sir? You need to give 5 tickets a shift. And I know they're going to assimilate. But I want them to understand that after a year of learning their system, to bring back the human element of policing, which is verbal warnings. And I'm going to get on a tangent real quick. I hope you keep it keep it in. You give a ticket to somebody for speeding, right? $150 ticket. They pay the ticket. Insurance company finds out about that ticket. They raise their rates for that person for the next 4 or 5 years, right? So that $150 ticket costs $2,000 when you look at it at the end of it, right? And if our goal is to change behavior, when I stop you and I look up your record and you haven't had a ticket in 5 years or 6 years, a verbal warning is an amazing thing to say, hey, slow down, right? Slow down. I pull dead bodies out of cars, right? I think our goal should be to change behavior, not monetary values on everything you do. Do you not speed, Scott? Do you not fucking speed when you're late? Do you not crush the gas pedal on that yellow light? Fuck yeah, we all do. So why should I jam you because a department wants numbers, because a court system needs money? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that person for that.
And it brings up a perfect example, a real life example. A pretty close friend of mine just recently, she gets pulled over in Boston Heights. All right.
You're getting a ticket, baby.
I actually used to work.
I love you, Jeff Lyle, but Boston Heights, you're getting a ticket.
I used to work in Peninsula. So I knew Boston Heights pretty well. And I knew that, honestly, Boston Heights, they are out there making their money off of traffic citations, all right? And we can make this argument all day long. Hey, all traffic citations, they save lives, they lower accidents, whatever.
Right.
Anyways, my friend hasn't had I think she's maybe 40-ish years old. All right, we'll leave it at that, where she's 40 years old. Never had a traffic citation her entire life. She gets pulled over at Boston Heights going 10 over, and the officer even comments, "Oh, you don't have any prior violations," and still gives her a ticket. And to me, again, are we really serving what we're supposed to be doing? And why would you? She's already scared shitless. You got her pulled over. She's never had a ticket in her life. She's scared shitless, and you issue her a citation. And to me, our goal is to modify behavior.
We'll be back. I gotta take a picture of this thing with you.
All right. Friends at the compound.
No, I totally agree, man. You're exactly right. Our goal is to change behavior. And so I stop a car, 2 baby seats in the back, a guy driving with his name on it, he's a mechanic or whatever, right? Bob on his fucking... It's November. I give this fucking poor guy a $150 ticket for speeding, trying to get the fucking work on time, right? Like we all do. This guy's got to modify Christmas, right? He's got to go to a court date maybe, or just pay his fine. $150, and his insurance goes up. the ramifications of what we do a lot of times last many years on to people that we do. And I want my officers that I train, I want all of them, and regardless of this podcast or anything else, I don't give a shit what people think about me. Our job is to change behavior. And if I can stop you and you ain't had a ticket in 5 years and say, hey, brother, last week somebody hit a deer at 80 miles an hour here on Route 2. And I had to pull his fucking dead son out of the back seat of the car. And I don't want to see that happen to you. I'd like you to slow down for me, brother. And you put that mental image into their head, I believe that is way better than a $150 ticket and 4 or 5 years of a higher insurance rate for you.
It used to annoy me when I first came into East Cleveland, and I'm out of my cigar, so I'm looking for another cigar.
I gotta pee, dude. Do you push pause or what?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, why don't we? Let me get my story. I want to finish my story. All right. So
I'll just pee in my
the one thing I don't want to say regret. I don't know. When I was in East Cleveland on the traffic unit, we had X amount of, you get this quota thing. All right. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Shift goal.
Nobody wants to.
It's not a quota.
Yes.
It's a shift goal.
Yes.
Totally different.
East Cleveland. And I'm going to stick up for the residents of East Cleveland because 99% of you were great people. I love you, and I actually miss you. I honestly do.
I know we do.
The actual residents of East Cleveland were good people. They were just on fucked up circumstances in their life. They're working 3-4 jobs to make a living. And again, is it serving any good if I pull you over? You can't even afford. He's got a busted muffler. Exactly. He can't afford to fix the muffler to begin with. So now I'm going to compound the issue and give him a citation for loud exhaust. He's got now court costs, fines, fees. Half the time, I would actually
to appear. Warrants. It goes.
I would go behind and go to the prosecutor and say, "Listen, if this guy fixes his exhaust, can we dismiss this?" Yeah. And again, this is what it's new officers. I'm hoping this gets out. This message gets out to you, right? Think you are a person. You're an officer. Most of you probably, honestly, most of the officers in Ohio are probably not making $1 million. All right, and can feel the pain if you got pulled over and had to get hundreds of dollars of citations. So imagine you're somebody that you can't even afford to fix your exhaust. Okay, what good is it me citing you for the exhaust? You can't even, you don't have the money to fix the exhaust. Now people are going to say, "Oh, he shouldn't be driving. He doesn't have he," and you're right. But the person can't function in life.
People in their white ivory tower with $80,000 a year jobs will say you shouldn't be driving. A lot of people I used to stop used to be on their way to work, right? They have no license. They're suspended because of the ticket they couldn't afford 2 months ago. And now they're on their way to do a painting job or some other job. And it is up to me to now help this person out because I'm with him against the system. Yet I'm part of the system, right?
Yep.
That's where my discretion comes in. Discretion is the only superpower a police officer has. It is your superpower. It's the only superpower you have because you can able, on the ground level, make decisions that really affect people in a positive manner or a negative manner, but hopefully positive. I gotta pee.
All right, we're gonna break up.
Dude, I think we're crushing it.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap for episode 17. We actually have more of the interview. We actually had to break and take a comfort break. There's actually more of the interview. I've sort of condensed the majority of it into that. It's actually still rather lengthy. Let me know in the comments if you want to see the rest. Quite a bit of good information that Doug had given us. I wouldn't mind having him on from time to time, especially when we go over a lot of these use of force issues. So I have a lot of things coming up next week, a lot of A lot of updates that are coming up. But that's it for this week. I'm just dying out my drum beat here. But anyways, everybody have a great week, great weekend. We'll see you next week.